I think so. Pictures.
Do that to me, I don't want I was looking at the, that's a lineup this month, looks really good for events. Yeah, really, really nice.
Very strong one.
Yeah. And it builds into everything you guys were working on this year, right? Like,
Yeah.
everything's kind of building up. I can do pretty good with this stuff, yeah.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah. That's your report. Very well, to say.
Sweet.
The road map, sign stuff, that's all you need. It's like, what's up, Rod? It's like, I've noticed,
How you doing? Just talking about it.
one of my more brilliant ideas.
Yeah. These deep balls and they don't roll.
I'm gonna do the base roll. Yeah.
That is, finished it.
Oh, yeah.
I have to think about it for a second.
Yeah.
Hi. Here it is.
A very attractive presentation.
Bon appetit.
Yeah. Thank you.
Nothing we can do to help us here, Buck?
No, I'm in the home stretch now, Kevin.
That's
Thanks,
good.
so. Appreciate that. Wow, it smells delicious.
For me, we're coming around the clubhouse turnout, I think, but the same goes, he's not over to the fact that he's checked clears. But we're pretty close to it now. Yeah.
Excuse me, does anybody want anything from the bar?
Now we're there.
Water, if I can get water.
That'd be great. None of us have minor vices. Well, how's it going with you? What's your, like, college of your, how do you control the county?
Nothing really lost. I've changed it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. A lot of new there.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
That
Yes, yes.
but, few things that I can't do still. I gotta find her.
Bob, just be careful, there's something plastic on the ground.
Thank you.
That's right.
All this recognition on my property. I haven't looked, but, for 1,500 feet of road from the driveway put into my property, property.
Oh, yes, yes.
Ran right up there.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm trying to get that done. Real estate. Biggest real estate.
What's your name?
Oh, won't ask me that right now.
Yeah.
I can't. Go for
A German company, is it?
yeah.
Yeah.
Engine.
Yeah.
They have a name on the
Oh, yes, yes.
certain guy, the guy is one.
Yeah, yeah.
They just started their opening their head office.
Mhm.
Last year I was on a bulldozer and I put it 700 feet.
Very good, very good.
But, then I ran into a bog.
Oh, yeah.
No, I said you wanted to 4:15.
Up to 3 tons stone. To get through
I
the bog.
know, yeah.
I had 4 trucks on for a day and a half. That got
Awesome. Great, yeah, bye.
But,
Yeah, right. Yeah. That's something like the sinkhole in Oxford.
yeah, look at this is like a. I don't know if it's called a bog.
Yeah.
Still, you know, black soil.
Yeah, yeah, sure, yeah.
And,
Well, I think-
one area that, 7 feet deep.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
I think the term for that is a eutrophied lake, okay? So, you get a little pond, okay?
Yeah.
And then the lilies grow and then it grows and so on, so eventually it fills in with, moss and, so,
exactly, that's what.
yeah, yeah. I was wondering, with the clarity of 20/20 hindsight, if you looked at an aerial photo, could you identify that that is like an oval shape is probably a bog and you could have steered your road around it?
Yeah, I'm on the edge of it, I walked out property, so, I have to go on the edge of the property.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
On the property.
Yeah,
But the source coming to that area is coming from the Liberty Road side.
yeah,
It's going through my property and then 1 feet downhill to the other properties.
yeah.
So it's just a matter of trenching to get it done.
Oh, yeah.
Out of there, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
But no, it's been in the middle of the woods. So
Mhm. No, but as long as you knew where it was, if you could see a clear oval shape with no trees growing on it, you could be very suspicious that it was a bog. And you could have just diverted your road in that particular area. So you would-
Yeah, I did, but it was the one area I had to go through.
Yeah.
I'm just logging on
Yeah,
now. Yeah, we don't start till 5:15.
Really?
100 foot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Straight away.
Awesome.
Sometimes you gotta get.
Well, I'll give you a call because we'll use the phone for the audio and now it's out here. Okay,
Mm.
awesome, thanks.
Awesome, yeah, like no way around it. You know,
Yeah,
that was the shortest way around
yeah.
it. And then I had to do ditching and all that stuff. Culverts.
Yeah. Mhm.
But it's in there now.
Yeah, exactly.
The property was worth the investment. 225 feet. In South Beach.
Oh, yeah.
Allocated during our health. 80 to 100.
Wow.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Fresh water, fresh water.
Yeah. Okay, so I don't know, that's not on the ocean, is it? It's on the Iowa River.
Yeah, Grand
Yeah. Okay, so now, if I had a lot there, if I had a sailboat, there's no bridges across the road, is there?
Yeah, Marion Bridge, can't get sailboat.
Oh, shit, yeah. How much clearance is underneath for a powerboat?
Oh, you can get a pretty big boat.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not sailboats.
You're just been out for a while, no doubt, yes.
Yeah.
It's been out all the time.
They would remove that railroad and probably go from your place. They'd sailboat. They're not the highway.
Yeah.
No.
Highway.
Yeah, so the highway is 6 feet clearance. And the
Fair weather sailor, like.
railroad is 4 feet. But then, and the other, the very small pond is between 1 and 2 feet depth.
Yeah.
So you have to be careful with an outboard motor, like,
Right.
get a run of speed on it and tip the motor up and close through.
Yeah.
Mm.
How you doing?
Fine, yourself,
Good, thank you.
super. Mm.
So you want to.
Oh, no,
Yeah, I know, and I don't want to.
No. Mm.
I have to go back. I have to go back to East Canada. Sign that I have really.
Oh, yeah,
When the house is in the university, like the house is got set up to the heat exchanger design.
Yeah.
Tested anything, they know
Yeah.
what. He said, you won't look at it, you said, 100,000. This is back in,
good,
for me to look at it. Oh,
it's crazy.
and part of that, the thing is part of it's solar,
Mhm.
and part of it's, pollution control too.
Mhm.
Which is a real, beyond the climate change.
Okay.
The world beyond the climate change.
Yeah.
Pollution in India and all
Yeah.
that. And, one of the things is corporation.
Mhm.
Precipitator.
Right?
The precipitator,
Mhm.
it can be, without one would be up to the, I don't think. But, and it's also, economy measure.
Mhm.
So you could, the heat exchanger is, outlier, steam and hot air, all three,
Yeah,
every heat exchanger.
Mhm.
Same for solar.
yeah. Mhm.
So it's solar, like you can produce steam, you can produce electricity. Turbine, great.
Mhm.
With that. The other problem they're having with the, hydro in California and that. So that's different areas there.
Yeah, sure.
Where this we could put up, they wouldn't have to run long distances across that. And there is county.
Mhm.
We have one here, one
Mhm.
Hey, Barry,
there. Always
you hear me there?
climate change and all that.
Yeah, hear you well.
Somebody to back me, so.
Hear me okay?
Yeah, actually, it's very good.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's the, internet audio, so.
Okay, good. Well, we'll try that. We'll leave the phone as a backup.
Yeah, sure.
I'll move the computer around though so you can see the other panelists. Not just me. As inviting as that is.
That would be a plus.
They'll be over here, so. You guys want to sit there? We're still a little bit early. We're still waiting for Rob, so.
Hello.
I did have a tendency to reduce the size of audiences whenever I'm participating.
Awesome.
Or
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, you see.
Oh, you doing? How are you?
Good, how are you doing? That's good.
Hello there. How you doing?
Good, good.
Oh, I can see you in two places. They're in front of the screen. Is that Barry? Is that one half of Barry?
That is.
Just one now.
Is that Bar?
Do you recognize that voice, Barry?
No,
The one and only from.
He could have pretended.
Mhm.
There, Rob. Right there, Robert.
yeah. How about yourself? I am here.
Awesome. The audio is very good, so we're gonna go with the audio.
That's great.
So
You have it.
Perfect. Yeah, you won't just see me, you'll see other panelists as well.
Sue, you.
Pardon, John?
Yes, exactly.
Good, how are you?
Good.
You have to come over here so they can see you.
I'll just come see you. Chat.
Yeah.
Any opportunity to hear the news on it?
Oh, yeah. Lots of us.
Yeah. Did you, Matt send you what I spotted today?
Did. And when, and it came to light, well, that came to light, but I was talking about the bands, and then I was like, and I was, you know how many times I looked at that sign every morning, every Saturday? You know, it's,
Very good.
Those are typos. Sorry, that's my fault.
and that was Matt. You know, he take,
I'm good, thank you very much.
did he take that on us, or he didn't admit that they had it?
Well, we're gonna get started. Thanks, everybody, for coming. TecSocial for our remote guests, for Barry and Rob. It's fairly casual, so we'll still have people arriving all throughout the evening. But we are gonna get started tonight. Our topic is working remote. And we've got a great panel that are gonna share their experiences with us. To my right, Paul Travis from Calum Health, Michelle Milburn from Advanced Glazings. I'm Bob Pelly with the Remote Court. And on screen, in the, how do we distinguish these gentlemen? With the, okay, Rob has just removed his glasses. Rob Ackman with Reston in New Brunswick. And in the upper right-hand corner is Barry Bisson with Propel ICT. And I think Barry is in Charlottetown tonight.
Yes, I am.
Awesome. Great. So to start, what I will ask, I'm going to ask each panelist to introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about your experience with remote working. So I'll start with Barry, and then move to Rob and Michelle and Paul. So go ahead, Barry.
Yeah, well, I've been CEO of Health since 2017. Prior to that, I was CEO of a national not-for-profit called SHAD, which focuses on exceptional high school students across Canada and with focus on innovation and entrepreneurship. And prior to that, I was a professor in the Faculty of Engineering at UNB for 21 years and was very involved in doing online learning kind of experiences. When I was hired at Propel, after having lived in the Waterloo region for 12 years, where I really experienced the value of having density in a region like Waterloo, close to Toronto, then come back to Atlantic Canada, and really, with the possible exception of Halifax, we just don't have that kind of density anywhere in the region. So we decided to move to a virtual accelerator model so that we could serve founders wherever they are throughout Atlantic Canada. And so I've had 2 years working in this kind of an environment. I must say, I wish I had been a remote worker my entire life. After having a daily commute in the Waterloo region, and now my commute is from the kitchen to my office downstairs. It's quite refreshing.
Much better. Can you tell us a bit about who you're working with remotely?
Yes. So we have a team of 8 people, myself included. We have 5 entrepreneurs in residence at the moment who are working with our founders, always working with them remotely. And we have other team members, that run our operations and help us with our marketing and so on. So our entire organization works remotely. And so we all operate from wherever we are. Today I happen to be in Charlottetown. And that's the beauty of it, is wherever we are, is we can still function as a team and communicate as a team.
Awesome. Rob.
Yeah, Rob Ackman, I am a bit new to the remote world because I'm managing a team of built from scratch in India. And we also have existing remote people in our company, some people who work out of Wisconsin or Alberta or California. So my experience has been a bit revealing to me, because there's a lot of things that I never considered. become very interesting as we develop our own kind of protocol for our remote team.
Awesome, thanks. Michelle?
I'm Michelle Milburn, Chief Operating Officer at Advanced Blazing Limited. So my husband Doug Milburn and I started Advanced Blazing 20 some odd years ago. We were also in Waterloo for 10 years and decided to come back to Sydney and start a company with a 6-week-old baby. I don't know what we were thinking. But anyway, we manufacture translucent flame units, which are windows basically that you can't see through. Proprietary, we have patents on them, and we have 25 people working with us, including our production crew at Advanced Blazing on Kings Road. And we also have a sales force strategically placed around the US and Canada to sell the product for us. So, we started out with, one in Toronto, and now we have one in New Hampshire, one in Massachusetts, one in Chicago, one in New York City, and one in Maryland, and then we have one in Toronto. So that's kind of what we have going on, and it's been growing for us, and there's lots of great stuff, but there are also lots of challenges with that as well. So.
Yeah. Paul?
Yeah. My name is Paul Travis, CEO and co-founder at Talent Health Analytics. We started Talent Health, me and my co-founder 4 years ago. We're a B2B SaaS company. We sell auto insurers a solution where they can predict costs on medical expenses. So my experience with remote working actually started from the beginning. We have individuals in Toronto and Boston, some people on the sales ground in Boston and Hartford, Connecticut. And really, our company always had a form of remote working from the beginning of the existence. And rolling that out, as everybody has said, has been challenging in terms of implementing HR strategies and solutions from the beginning to actually look at accountability, but actually aligning that with goals with a shoestring budget as a start. So it's lots of things you can do and lots of mistakes you can make pretty early on.
That's great. I would like, first of all, can you guys remotely, can you hear us okay? Should I move the computer? Okay, awesome. I do an awful lot of remote work myself as well, so I'm very cognizant of what it's like to be on the computer joining, so try to make sure that is working well. We've all talked about already what constitutes a remote job where it's somebody working from away. And I do very much want this to be a panel discussion, so I may throw a question to somebody initially, but I would like everybody to kind of, if you have something to contribute, please feel free to do so. So I'll start my first question, and maybe I'll go with Rob on this first one. Is why hire remote workers?
Well, there was for us there were 4 different ways that we came about this. One was to support an employee lifestyle choice. So they may want to exist in a certain area. We have some people who work out of California, and we have a vision how to be best. But here we have a local employee who wanted to live in Wisconsin. Their lives just there, and so we moved them there, and they are now full-time remote. We had other things too. There was whether it's supporting a delivery cost savings program. So we use that to extend features, or perform research, or provide support on other work. We use it for that. Or we might have parachute teams that come in and talk with the delivery team. Or even third-party integrations with other vendors or clients, and we work remotely with them. So there's about 4 different ways we saw it.
And is that consistent with your experience, Michelle, or is yours a bit different?
The lifestyle thing is more for people coming to Cape Breton for us, I think, but for us, it's more having boots on the ground in the territories that we want to cover.
Right.
And that's why those people are strategically placed in those locations. So for us, that's more about where the location is and we want someone to cover it. You need somebody who can go and meet with the architects and be there should there be something that they want you to come over and look at. So we have to have someone placed there that's within driving distance or
Right.
can get there the next day.
Yeah. And is that type consistent with your team, Barry? It's more of a geographic coverage, or is it lifestyle, or?
Yeah, well, when we made the choice to go to a virtual model, that basically meant that all of our employees would be remote workers, but we have another kind of remote worker in Propel that aren't employees of the organization. And I'm speaking specifically of, for example, we do a lot of virtual fireside chats. And one of the real pleasant surprises of going virtual is that we're able to access world-class expertise from very, very busy people who are, remote parts of the world that are willing to give back. So, for example, we have had fireside chats from people like Mark Roberge, who took HubSpot from 0 to 500 million in sales. He's now a prophet, Harvard Business School. And so he could do an hour and a half from his office at Harvard, whereas trying to get him to travel to Atlantic Canada and go around to all the cities just would not be possible. Michelle Romano from CBC's Dragon's Den is going to do a virtual fireside chat. And we also transitioned our mentorship model to what we call on-demand mentorship. So when our EIRs are working with a founder and they have a particular problem that might be a technical issue or a business issue, we will reach out into our networks and see if we can find someone who will take a call today with that EI or with that founder about their problem. And so the whole remote part of our model is not just what we're accomplishing with our employees, but it's what we're gaining in the way of access to world-class experts.
Right. Okay, good. Paul, how about you? What's your need for hiring remote workers?
I think for us initially was really to do with kind of our initiatives in our company. So developing a third-party product in the US, we needed expertise from an R&D perspective that were out of province. So that was really the initiative to kind of get our product off the ground initially. But in terms of our sales cycle and looking at how we commercially sell to insurance companies, it was consistent with some of the vendors that we're dealing with. So we had to have somebody side by side with them, getting in the office and selling a product in the easiest way. And from an economy standpoint, me traveling back and forth helps, but as well as having somebody on the ground, especially in the Massachusetts area, Boston, Hartford, that helped us a lot to push our product out. So that's kind of where we started with sales and product initiative.
Great. I'm going to move on now. I'm going to draw upon some of your battle scars. What are some of the things that you need to consider when you're building a remote team? I'll start with Barry this time.
I think the biggest challenge is making sure that everyone's aligned. I mean, that we don't have water cooler conversations at Propel. And, so we've adopted John Dewar's OKR methodology, objectives and key results. And we begin just prior to the beginning of every quarter, we get together online as a team and we decide, with some guidance from myself, what are the top 3 to 5 priorities that we need to address in the next quarter? And we identify, the objectives we're trying to achieve around those priorities. And we also identify the key results that are quantifiable, measurable, that we need to achieve in order to achieve those objectives. And from there, each member of our team then has to develop their own OKRs to support our corporate OKRs. And that keeps us all very focused on the same things that are most important to continue to execute at a top level in our organization. And so every Friday afternoon, every member of our team has to go in and update their OKRs And then we have a virtual team meeting every Monday morning to report on those issues and anything else that comes up. So we have, that way we have regular communication and we're all focused on the same things. And that's a challenge that I think, that applies in any organization, but I think it's particularly important in a virtual organization where you're not getting alignment through, regular communications at the water cooler or in your office or whatever.
Right. Rob, I noticed you were nodding your head when Barry first mentioned the water cooler.
Yeah, it's true. Communication and being in touch is really important. Beyond that, there's some things that kind of hit us a lot. We are more or less a startup company that is trying to become a real company now. And to help along with that, we look for government funding in various sorts, for example, hiring or things like this for research. Now, one of the things we've used offshore for is cost savings of delivery, sure. But then those funding arrangements don't cover non-Canadian employees. So you have to really kind of balance them. Well, what do you want to do? Do you want to have those offshore people, or do you want to support Canadian employees working locally? It's a very hard balancing act sometimes to make those decisions. And then beyond those kind of things, then you have to deal with hiring practices in another country as well. If you're matching your local time zone with them, there's 8.5 hours ahead. So if you have employees who have to provide security and for them. But all these other little things that come out to make sure that you're doing things the right way, that supports their lifestyle as well. And we found that a lot of things, when you're actually looking for these employees, your online presence is really important. You have a bad Glassdoor review, you have to answer those questions. Everything is visible to the outside world when you want to look for employees there. So all of these things take factors of how we created our team.
Right.
And so one of the big considerations was for us, for a remote team in another country, to start it up, you'd have to be there for 2-3 months to build that team. Otherwise, it just won't work. You have to have somebody there. And remote only works for us, it only works so far. And then you have to either go there to reestablish the company loyalty, or make sure that physical plant things are such as security in the building, so that's all set up. You have to revisit that location again, and only be remote. In our world, you only be remote.
Okay. Michelle, what are some things that you were considering when building your remote team?
When we started out, we didn't have video conferencing or anything, right? So, I mean, communication is huge, right? And everyone was feeling like they're a part of the team.
Yeah.
So that has helped immensely for us, because we have regular, conferences with our sales team, with our R&D. Everyone feels connected to everyone else at the company. But for us, I think initially we have a lot of hiring battle scars in the States, because in the States, I'm not sure if you're aware, but every state has different. It's not like Canada where we have UIC, CB, everything is different. Every state is different. Every state has different requirements. The filings are different. So when you get a new employee, you don't just sign them up like you would here and get all the paperwork together. You need to sign up with the state of New York. You need to Massachusetts, you have to do that. You have to do New Hampshire, and everything is, so that in and of itself is a little crazy.
Yeah.
And also, the hiring process is tough, right? Because you're you're going there, you're trying to sort through resumes, and then you send people out there when you get it down to a list that you feel comfortable with, that you think that these people might be the right candidates, and then you get there and it's like, oh, no. That's, so, what we started doing is we've been working with, with Samantha, I guess, we call her, we call her a white witch, but I guess that's not probably the right term. But anyway, she's a psychologist, and she specializes in sales. And so she does, a communications piece, or a personality profile, if you will. So she helps us, we used to, interview and then do the profiling and the communications pieces, but we found that we may be biasing based on ourselves, wanting to hire. So then we started doing the communications pieces up front and then shortlisting from there. And that's really helped.
Make it more part of the process.
Yeah, like it was always part of the process, but I think it was on the wrong end.
Yeah.
So that's kind of really helped us.
Okay. What do you call?
Yeah, I think stars is a good terminology, because when we first started, you're moving fast, you're trying to fill the ways. If you need something now, you're trying to fill it as quickly as possible because you have so much money, or your resources and time are limited. So I think for us, initially, probably didn't put the best HR structure in, screening applicants in a way that we were actually getting a non-biased look, like you said, and as well getting actually a candidate that would be effective within our company. So what really helped us was getting an HR professional, somebody who can help us profile, almost learn how to profile people, learn a structure. Company policies are really important too as well. Sometimes you think that, it may not offend somebody if you, went on in a way that you did or made a decision the way you did, but not having policies in place to leave people accountable, but as well protect yourself is really important. And I think initially we didn't do that moving fast, and probably initially we look back to that, probably will do that.
Interestingly, I think everybody may have mentioned the importance of sort of that the face-to-face bit, or going to meet with the team. And it may be different with you, Barry, because you sort of already had an existing team and then sort of transitioned to remote operations. But what's the importance of that face-to-face initially? And since so many people mentioned that it's there, would you ever consider not doing a face-to-face component in terms of adding to your team? So, Barry,
face-to-face is very important. In fact, our team meets, I wouldn't say monthly, but certainly every second month, if not more frequent, we will schedule 1 or 2 days where we spend some intensive time together, including evening meals and that sort of thing, discussing, our priorities, our issues, our challenges, and so on. So we do that on a regular basis, and I think it is important. Again, back to alignment, and so I'm not suggesting that because we operate primarily virtual, that there isn't a place for face-to-face. Even with one phase of our accelerator, we actually bring the founders together for 2 days to launch phase 2 of our accelerator. It kind of, they can get an opportunity to socialize with each other and maybe create some new relationships that can be valuable later on. And we end that phase of the accelerator with another 2-day session. In between, though, everything is done virtually, either live, online in the tool called Zoom, or asynchronously with founders accessing all of the content that's in our learner management platform.
Okay.
One of the things we had to really consider was getting the most people on the same page in terms of expectations on delivery. So the way we deliver is through the project management system called Jira, and the Atlassian product, and how we run our agile projects is very particular, and we had to have everybody up to speed and answer every single question that would come up. And the only way to really handle that kind of a question, I found, was being there, having them on a round table, and just going at it to answer all those questions and get the process down with a new employee, and then we work remote.
Okay, great. Yeah, sure.
You know, for us, because we have people all over the US, it's hard to bring them together on a regular basis. So I think we try and make up for that by trying to make sure that everyone is interacting together, you know, that the sales force is interacting with the R&D team and that they all feel comfortable and get and know each other, I guess, is really important. You know, once we try and get them to Sydney to actually have the face-to-face interaction, because, you know, they're on an island up to themselves, right? It gets kind of lonely up there, right? If you feel like, you know, so we encourage them to, you know, pick up the phone, and we do use a video conferencing, which is nice to see the face. You know, it's one thing to call somebody, but it's really nice to see the face and have a conversation. So that's
Yeah, excellent. Well,
Yeah, I think going back to like the first 6 weeks is really important, especially if you're hiring a technical employee trying to get up to speed. Like we've noticed hiring people on and off that if you don't spend that extra time, the face-to-face, it can really put things back. Work tools like Slack, Trello, keeping all the goals aligned with the team, staying on top of that and looking at accountability. But I think where we stumbled probably initially was how do I get better, and you know, how can I perform? How do I take it to the next level rather than staying status quo? So, you know, KPIs and deliverables are important. We really meet with any employee face-to-face at least every quarter to review that and make sure we're staying on top of that. And again, connecting those sales and R&D and making sure everybody's on the same page. It's very important. With a small team of 6, very important.
great. What about things like onboarding and building and maintaining the type of corporate culture that you want to have? Barry?
Well, I'm a great believer in values-based leadership, and in 2 CEO experiences that I've had, the first thing I did with my team is sit them down and spend some time to articulate what our core values would be, what kind of behaviors do we want in our organization, and what kind of behaviors are going to be key to our success. And, you know, it's really worth the time to figure that out, because it gives you that consistent reference point every time where you're observing really good behaviors of your team members. You can reinforce those values by pointing out to them, hey, this is exactly the kind of behavior that we need on our team. On the other side, if you're observing you know, behaviors that are not consistent with our core values, you have a very authentic conversation at those moments of truth that can be really helpful. And, you know, it brings some objectivity to the conversation, that we all agree that these were our core values, and what you've just done is really not consistent. So people understand better why their behavior is offside. So I think, you know, starting with getting the team to really articulate those core values can be really, really helpful in building the kind of culture that you want in your organization. And again, that can work both in a virtual team and you know, with a team that works together in the same office.
Rob?
Yeah, back to the SCARS thing. That is very important to build those core values. That is, you hope it's going to be in place, and then you onboard someone else. When that first person you hired, I think it's more of a risk taker, and I think you have a very honest conversation with that person and you can hire that person. So I think that kind of attachment really help. But then you expect that, well, perhaps maybe the next person will be you have those kinds of discussions. And then it turns out that the person really does not understand even their culture or even desiring to fit into one. And those become different conversations, but on a remote basis, it's really just picking up the phone and talking to that person directly. And those have been very awful discussions. I hate not seeing people succeed. And in this case, I couldn't continue with this person anymore. Having given them everything they need to succeed, and still seeing them want to adhere to or uphold those kinds of corporate goals. It's very hard. So I don't think that's anything of a remote or local, but it was a very strange experience to remote. And yeah, it's all about getting those core values or
Right, right. Sure.
I agree with what they've said, that core values, culture is really important as well. We usually, the first week we have an onboarding, and our product can be technical in nature, so sometimes it takes a while to see if somebody's going to get it or not, and and can they operate in the culture that we have? We are a really great technical R&D team, and we pride ourselves in being able to do different things, but no, we can't do that. When we know we can't do it, we're just not going to put ourselves in that spot. So, the whole battle scars things about, getting to the 6-month point or whatever and saying, but we had a sales manager who would travel and do those types of things in person, but it's never pretty.
Yeah, yeah.
Happens.
Paul, any?
Yeah, I definitely agree with the core values for sure. And I think identifying skill set early on can help develop a better culture, because somebody's going to feel confident in what they're doing. Like you said, the product can be sometimes technical. It can take 6 to 8 weeks for somebody to really understand, especially with our platform, kind of our business case and how that links to our R&D. But when we identified skill set with our last hire, you could tell that when we put that person on that part of the project, from a cultural standpoint, it almost kind of vibrated through the team, and it got people excited. And I think if you put somebody in a position where their skill set is in their favor, and then you slowly implement the things that they want to work on, and have other team members empower them, I think that's kind of core values of the team. We've seen that work, and then we haven't done that with probably one of our first hires, and unfortunately that was, again, that conversation, right?
Yeah. I'm going to turn to the audience and see, does anybody here have any questions? Or if you, what was the firm audience, a great line. If you think you wanted to ask a question, what would the question be?
He hasn't told us a joke yet.
It's been really quiet. Yeah, you must have something, firm job. Any questions that we haven't covered yet? Yeah.
Have you hired somebody remotely without meeting them, and it's actually worked out?
Did you hear that, guys? Yeah. Have you hired anybody remotely without meeting them in person, and has it worked out?
Yes, I have. Now, I met them later, but initially it was a remote hire, and I have 3 hired that way, and they were exceptional. I've been quite lucky in this. But one of the things, for an offshore team, but one of the things I found important with that is that you have to ensure that you have a company culture to invite them into it. if you don't, it'll get away from you and they'll create their own culture and you'll be lost to that. So I've always found that kind of an interesting way of looking at it, but having those people come into a culture is easier than trying to dive into and understand the culture that they created. All that, it's a hard thing.
And was there any defining characteristics of the people? You know, that they were motivated or driven by a passion, or was it just the fact that the culture was there and they were able to integrate well?
I would think overall, people want to be successful. I think people overall want to do the right thing and want to succeed in their work. There's been only 2 cases I've come across where they don't understand their own need out of this job, and so maybe it doesn't match. But the right people will, once you find the right skills, and hiring them means asking really tough questions. If you're hiring that person for that skill, tear that skill apart and make sure that they understand that people's roots, not only from a technological point of view, but if they want to extend that, how do they extend that to solve a different problem? Are they able to work with that technology? And that's the kind of person that I look for. And then they have that drive. You can see it in their own work, in their own eyes. They have this drive to want to succeed because their own drive, it's their work. This is what they do. Let them do what they do. And I found that really
Excellent.
Yeah, I would add to that. I mean, I've hired, I think, 2 people on my team solely through online interviews using Zoom, very much like what we're experiencing right now. I mean, I think there's more to hiring than just the interview process. There's other things other due diligence that you need to do around their track record and so on. During the interview process, I tend to focus on, I really like to try and get to know the person as a person as opposed to an employee, and to give me some evidence about the likelihood that they're going to be able to align with our values. And the other thing I would say is that hiring continues even after you've done a deal with the person and they're on your team. Because what Rob was just saying, I think it's so important. You get some really pleasant surprises about you hired the person to execute a certain job with a certain skill set, but you end up finding out that they have more to offer than just that. And so all members of my team, in addition to their core roles, they end up taking on things that they're just very interested and very capable of doing and very passionate about. And so it's really about getting people at their best. And so this process of discovering through working with them what they're really good at and trying to engage them to do that. So I think hiring doesn't stop when you've actually brought the person on the team and continue.
Excellent. In the room, any experience hiring people totally remote, not meeting them?
No, we've never done it.
Yeah, you have Paul?
3 people with just via video conference, but I think it is like you said, hiring does continue on. Skill set is empowerment. So finding out as they work with the team, and obviously they're integrating into that culture, what they're good at. We have some employees on our team where they'll just pull in what they're working with the other employees. And when you're communicating and you're talking, running ideas off, you're bringing out skill sets, and people are going to win. And if they're driving what they're good at, it seems to be really successful.
Yeah. Awesome. Great question. Anybody else?
You've often touched on culture, core values, the communication in general when you're trying to hire, and you're after you hire your staff and continue that relationship. is there any kind of resources or advice you would give basically on how anything you've come across that's, because in communication, we all say it's important, but it's quite an abstract thing. You might think you're actively communicating something to an employee or to someone you're hiring, but it's lost in translation. And is there any advice you would give on that whole process, something that's helped you as a business owner communicate more effectively or try to establish your culture, whether it be a book, just your own personal advice, or even an experience you could offer that's kind of encapsulates something that's very abstract, but obviously very pivotal to this whole process? This is how do you define who you are to your potential employees?
Great question. I'll try to summarize it as best I can.
I know that was very
We've talked a lot about communication and culture. Are there any tools or resources that we've used to improve those processes and also reinforce and reiterate sort of how strong or how your own culture works within the organization? Close?
Close, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's good. I'm sure it'll be different for each of them.
What's the, okay, there we go.
Yeah, there's certainly a lot of tools readily available. I'm fortunate that one member of our team, while working with Procter & Gamble in Switzerland, actually wrote a book on interviewing techniques. And so we use her book when we're interviewing for jobs. But, you know, the reality is it's not a perfect science. And, you know, even in reference checking, you have to have your guard up in terms of what you're hearing from a reference check. And so, you know, to me, it's all about, you know, what's the track record of this person? Trying to get some good evidence of their track record. And then what are they like as a person? And conversations can be very insightful with people when you start asking them about their personal interests, how they spend their time, what kind of books they like to read. You know, you can get some pretty good insights into this person and how they might behave on your team. But at the end of the day, you're really not sure when you hire the person that you've got the person that you absolutely need. And then what you've got to try and do is discover what their strengths are and really get them performing in relation to those strengths. And, so this is not an easy task, but boy, a bad hire is an expensive undertaking. A good hire is tremendous return on investment. And I've made some hiring mistakes in my day, and I know what it's all about when you make a bad hire. And I've also made some good hires that were really way beyond my expectations.
Rob?
I'll go back to Barry's point about getting to know the person. I was saying about the skills, then you go beyond that. Okay, this person knows these skills. Okay, we're pretty sure about that. Dug in. But like Barry was saying, get that person to talk to you as a human being. I found that sometimes that maybe it's nerves, maybe the person is at a maturity level where they're not used to getting asked these, you know, life questions. And I found that those who open up to those, who put aside work, talking about their life or the world around them, a little bit better, they are able to internalize work. And that's important because when they leave your office, you want them to live their lives as well. You don't want somebody that, in my world, I don't want somebody that is 100% keyed in and worried about work. They will burn out. And so I really want somebody to say, hey, the work day is done, I'm out of here. And so I try and open up those conversations with that person and speak with their life. I don't want an autonomous. I want somebody who can be on their own because they're remote from me. They have to be on their own. So those kind of discussions are really important.
Culture is, you know, when we put our job ads out, really we're we're a laid back group, but we have a purpose. So, we, as a group, we go and we'll talk to people and go and see what people are working on, but when push comes to shove, we all know what our job is and we know that job needs to get done. And, I'm COO, but I still look on Windows, right? So it's, you do what you have to do. And I think it's really important to know the people that are working with you, both inside and remotely. What makes them tick, what makes them want to get up in the morning, what motivates them, because what motivates one is certainly not going to motivate another. So, getting to know them well enough to know these things and then take the whole package and get everybody marching in the same direction. I think
Excellent. Yeah, I think in terms of the communication, just from my experience, just over the past 2.5 years, is really reflecting on a scenario if there was an issue or a break in communication, or if it wasn't the outcome we were expecting with the employee, is what could I have done better? Speaking to some of my mentors, how could I relay that message differently? Because, like I said, every employee is different. What's going to drive one employee is different versus the other. So I found that reflection part helpful in terms of saying, okay, what would I do better this time? And then kind of recognizing that and pushing forward and trying, like you said, get every skill set.
one thing we haven't done, we haven't done well is trying to drive our round peg into a square hole. When you're not doing anyone any favors, when you know the relationship is not going to work, and carrying that past the point, they know it's not working, it's not working. There's a right time to do that, right?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
I'll bring it to one of the points for stars. I don't have to share this, I'm sorry. Where you knew it wasn't working out, and so I had to let that person go. And it turns out the reason why they were calling sick all the time was because they had another job while they were sick. So it was a very interesting revelation. Because this person bragged to the other employees, but the other employees never ran about it. So I found this afterwards, and you pull the plug when you have it.
Yeah.
Too funny. The final, I'll close on this last question then. What's your single most important piece of advice that you give somebody about to hire their first remote worker? Barry?
I would say thorough. Hiring is more than just interviewing a candidate. You've got to validate that they have the skill set you're looking for. You need to have some idea of their track record, what they've achieved in the past. And you need to try and get some insights into their values and how their personal values will align with your corporate values. And to me, it's no different than an investor trying to invest and trying to decide whether or not they want to invest in a company. They do thorough due diligence to figure out if that's an investment that aligns well with their investment thesis. And when you're hiring someone, you're making a significant investment in a key person that's going to have a big impact on the results of your organization. So you need to be very thorough and do your homework. And it's more than just interviewing candidates.
Excellent. Rob?
Yeah, I would say, especially for your first employee, I would say, yes, the skills you have to nail that down, but find somebody who can effectively disrupt your day. This is someone who knows how to discuss and bring up these good and bad points, and knows how to ask the questions that are required to work remotely. If that person, you need at least one person like that on a remote team, that they will stick up for the other team members who are perhaps they've allowed who don't want to bring up or discuss, delicate matters. You need someone who will be the disruption and raise those kinds of matters to protect the team.
Excellent. Thank you. Michelle?
Skill set is really important. However, you know, when you're doing the interview process and you're calling references, they normally do not want to tell you the bad stuff, right? So it's only as good as the questions you ask. Like, for example, early on when we started Advanced Blazings, we had someone apply for sales in Atlantic, Canada. We had our white witch who we sent the profile to and everything. And we thought this guy was a rock star. Like, he had an amazing resume, selling glass, and, you know, he's been at it in years, looked on paper successful, references were good. And Samantha came back and said, "How am I get by? Are you gonna hire this guy?" And we were like, this is our first time we used her. And actually, Irving Schwartz was the one who got us using her. So
Okay.
it's kind of, so anyway, and we couldn't, we were like, what do you mean? This guy's like, his references were great, his resume is great, we've done our diligence. She goes, call back the references. And we're like, but we already called them. So what we did, we called back, and finally we said, you know, listen, we're trying to hire this guy, but, you know, you said this, and we asked a couple more questions, and finally the dam broke. He goes, oh my God, I don't know why this guy put me on his resume. He's awful. They'll never do anything. And so it just goes to show you that, you know, like, you think you know, but sometimes it's just, just not.
What's that around for? What did
She did this profile, right? It's a series, like a half an hour, 20-minute questionnaire, kind of like what we call her my parachute kind of thing, right? Only she's a PhD from George Brown or whatever, and this is what she does. She specializes in sales, right? So they complete the profile, we send it to her, and she'll call us back and download us on this potential hire. And so in the end,
she read that this guy, she said, this guy follows through on nothing. Out of psychological motivation, set measurement, you put it all together, say the sales situation. He'll come make promises, never follow the customer, never finish anything. And so we went back to the guy, and the guy said, yeah, I fired his goddamn ass because he never did a goddamn thing, and he tortured me for 2 years. And he asked me to do that, and I said, yeah, of course, he was good. And I said, I never.
But we would have hired him, right? Because the reference initially was good, and everything else looked good, but it's really
And she
hard.
said he'll cover up because his presentation skills are phenomenal. He'll sell himself. He'll do everything, and you'll be 3 or 4 years into it before you figure out that he's all bullshit. So we've been going off that guy's experience rather than having to apply it ourselves.
So we didn't believe her at first, but then when we went back, so now we've been using her 10 years later. So, yeah.
I think for us, you know, hiring somebody remote technically, skill set was everything. So really getting into their technical skills and not being afraid to, like Rob mentioned, is testing what they love, like challenge them, provide them, you know, a problem to solve, come back. And throughout that process, we've learned, okay, what's the passion, and does that passion align with the values? So that was really helpful with some of our technical hires.
To what extent do you hire for skills? We're getting this all done. We hire for aptitude and attitude first. We'll take skills second.
Mm-hmm.
Have you bumped at any point where you find attitude person has let you down when their skills are great?
Yes, and vice versa as well. I think where somebody's had very smart, great attitude, very personable, probably was not open enough with the lack of skill set they had in a certain thing that we hired them for, kind of hid that, but very smart, but hid it to the point where it probably hurt us for an extended period of time, where we didn't realize it was hurting us. So I think for us, it's really testing those skill sets.
Because you don't have training. See, our difference is we have training, right?
Yeah.
When we have really tight training, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's just time, right?
Yeah. You can see the time, but for us, it's almost like that skill set is what we're working on. And unfortunately, in that scenario, we probably had to reverse a lot of what we worked on our platform because we didn't identify that early on. But great person, very smart, just couldn't apply for technical skills. But could have used them in a way where we could have built them and probably developed their skill set as we went along building the product, but just didn't recognize it.
Well, Rob and Barry, thank you very much. For some reason, we've lost the video. I hope you're still there audio-wise.
That's the TecSocial.
I know. It's always the way, right? It's always the way. Thank you both very much for attending tonight and sharing your wisdom with us. We sincerely appreciate it, and thank you very much for your time. Look forward to one day seeing you both here, perhaps not together, but at least individually when you're in town.
Let's do that before too long.
Awesome.
Thanks for having us.
All right. Thank you both. Bye.
Bye.